One of the worst teachers I ever had in high school, I took creative writing in my senior year, and she passed out the syllabus and went, there are some people who don't have what it takes to be a professional writer. And Christopher Moore is one of those people. And there were 30 people in the class, and she singles me out.
Don't worry, no one's listening.
Hey, everybody, I'm screenwriter and novelist Edward Savio. Welcome to the podcast. The premise here is simple. You're not here. It's me, one-on-one with another writer, just talking through the parts we usually don't talk about in public, comparing notes on how we get from silence and blank pages to something worth shouting about and showing the world. These are the stories behind the stories. So even when my guests say,
"Would you mind fucking off?"
keep eavesdropping on our conversation. First up is Christopher Moore. I wanted to start with someone I genuinely enjoy on the page and as a person. We didn't know each other beyond social media before this, but by minute 2, it felt like we had been bantering about jokes walking around San Francisco for years. And so, here is my conversation with Christopher Moore, international best-selling author and the kind of person I'd want to invite to my parties, but who probably wouldn't show up because he'd, frankly, rather be by himself.
Don't worry, no one's listening.
My guest today is Christopher Moore, best-selling author, master of the absurd, and a guy who somehow makes the profane seem profound.
Nice.
Chris, I want to thank you for doing this. You were definitely the person I wanted to reach out to first. And everybody who is listening, you missed out when we were talking beforehand. We were very funny. So if we're not funny now, we may have used all of our stuff up.
Yeah, I'm exhausted.
I can tell. So you got started around the same time I did.
I sold my first book in 1990. And it didn't come out till 92.
Like, how did you get into it? Like, I knew I always wanted to do this. I knew there was nothing else I could probably do.
I wanted to do it when I one of the worst teachers I ever had in high school taught me one of the best things that I needed to do, which was treat it like I was approaching a profession, not creating art, and do the work like I was doing a job. And this was the same woman who I had taken an advanced comp class from in my junior year in high school. And then I took creative writing in my senior year. And she opened the year, passed out the syllabus and went, there are some people who don't have what it takes to be a professional writer. And Christopher Moore is one of those people. And there were 30 people in the class. And she singles me out because I was not good at getting my assignments in.
I love when people just tell you can't. And you're like, you know what? I kind of did. And I'm sure out of those 30 people, the 29 other bestsellers?
No, I'm the only writer that has ever come from my town, except the guy who wrote the books for Sondheim's plays. He wrote Sunday in the Park with George and all those. And I didn't even know about him growing up. That's how oblivious to the literary world Mansfield, Ohio was. It's like we had this guy writing these huge hit plays. Nobody in town knew about it.
No, nobody.
So anyway, I kind of decided early on, maybe when I was about 15, 16, that I wanted to, after it was like pro football career was probably out of the question.
Mine was a lead guitarist in a rock band.
It was like, I was like 6 foot tall and weighed 122 pounds. And they're like, football's probably not in your future. But anyway, I thought I wanted to be a writer. And my dad, who was a cop, he was always great about going, well, that's admirable. And I like to read, but that's really hard to break into, and maybe you should think about having something to fall back on. And so I went to Santa Barbara to study photography, and only got through the first semester because I wrote great captions for my shitty photos, and then I just dropped out because I couldn't keep up. I was working full time, and the curriculum was hard. And then I probably went 3 or 4 years, didn't do anything, and my girlfriend at the time said, you said you used to write. There's this writers' conference at the Miramar Hotel. You should go to that. And I wrote some stories. I went to Miramar. I read them. people were like, that's pretty good. And I met other people who stayed up late at night reading and writing, which I didn't know existed outside my little world. And I decided, okay, I'm going to try that. And I was really in a miserable place. I was selling insurance, and I hated it. And it was putting on a face to meet a face, as T.S. Eliot says. It was awful, and soul stealing. And I thought, why am I doing this? And I thought, well, for money. And at that point, I was at this little studio apartment that was a converted Motel 6 room. Everything I owned was in reach of the bed. It was breakfast in bed, whether you wanted it or not. And I thought, why am I doing this for the money? And I thought, well, what would I do if I had all the money in the world? And I thought, well, I'd travel. And I thought, yeah, that's not going to be enough. Then what? I thought, well, I'd write. And so I made the decision, I'm just going to jump right to what I would do if I had all the money in the world, which was write. And I think I was like 25 by that time. And then I was 33 when I sold my first book. So it took 8 years to get my shit together. Most of that was discipline. I think I was as talented when I was 23 as I was when I was 33.
Absolutely. I had the same thing. I had made money from smaller producers. The first script I sold to a studio I was 31. Lisa, who you can't see or hear, for those of you not listening and not watching, was my agent at the time. And Lisa sold Swiss Family Rubenstein. And it was just, right?
It's a great title.
It's a 3-word pitch, right? And it was on a Friday. It went out to 26 people. And by Monday, we had no bites, no calls, right? And at 4 p.m., I'm driving on Venice Boulevard. And I had never thought about suicide or anything like that, right? But I thought to myself at that moment, if I can't sell this, because it was also funny too, not just a good idea and a good concept, but it was well done. I don't know what I'm going to do. And about an hour and a half later, we got the first call. And all of a sudden come on the scene. Nobody ever sees that 10 years before.
Right.
I think audience members are either really in awe of what we do or think they could do it.
I think that's a pretty good take on it. I remember when I sold my first book to Disney before it sold as a book.
My first script was to Disney.
Yeah. And say what you will about that organization. I became a professional writer because they did that. It was a big deal because I was waiting tables at the time, and they actually called my agent, who called me at work when I was waiting tables, and my agent in Hollywood, who was at a boutique place at that point, and he said, I've got 4 people want to make offers, and Disney is offering a ton of money. I'll say it doesn't matter. They're offering you $350,000 up front, and the whole deal will come out to be $1 million on the back end, but you have to answer by 8:00 tonight. And I had a full section in this little Italian restaurant I worked in, and I said, look, I can't talk. I have garlic bread in the oven, and there was no cell phones.
Fucking garlic bread was going to kill your career.
And like 2 minutes before, I'm worried about what's the salad dressing on table 5, and anyway, he called back, and I said, tell him you couldn't get a hold of me, but you're authorized to close at 400. And he goes, they're not going to believe that. So he calls back, and I go, what'd you tell him? He goes, I told him I couldn't get hold of you, but I was authorized to close at 400. That you're closed at 400. All the local Central Coast California papers picked it up because it was a big rags to riches thing. And they all were saying it's just like winning the lotto. And I'm like, no, it's not like winning the lotto, unless I took 10 years to buy a ticket.
I kept buying tickets over and over and over and over and over and over and over.
I did 10 drafts of this ticket. But I mean, you can't be offended by it. People are happy for you, and they like a rags to riches story. And I was old enough, like you, I was in my 30s by this time. So I didn't do what I've known people who did really stupid things when they got a deal in Hollywood. And I did buy a sports car, but about a used one. And
one of the things about your stuff, which surprises me all the time, there's a lot of absurdity, but you ground it. I'm going to assume you do a bunch of research.
Yeah, I do. I do. Even stuff that you wouldn't think that I would need it. And it always informs what I do. And it also informs the comedy. And that's what people don't get. I've talked to other writers that go, I've never researched a book. Guys that have written a dozen bestsellers, I've never researched a book. And I'm like, I don't even know how you do that.
I don't know.
But they don't write funny books. And for me, my default reaction to stuff is to think of something funny. And so if I go out and expose myself to stuff for the first time, then whatever I think in that instance is probably going to end up in the book, because it's a funny thing that seems spontaneous at the time. And I'll give you a concrete example. I wrote a book called Lamb, that's the gospel according to Biff, Christ's childhood pal.
I've read that years ago. I'm literally halfway through it again. I just, knowing that I was going to see it, I picked it up again. I fucking love this. I want to ask you a couple questions about that.
So anyway, my wife said, well, you need to go to Israel. And I go, but everybody I'm writing about has been dead for 2,000 years. Because when I would do books like about San Francisco business district, I would go eavesdrop on people at lunch and stuff in the business district.
Sure, but that's down the street.
Yeah. And she said, no, you always get something, you should go. And then she flew off to Hawaii and I went to Israel. I need footsteps of Jesus. I need to get in, get out, nobody gets hurt. So I'm in the area of the Dead Sea. I mean, so appropriately named. There is not a green thing. There was nothing. And then occasionally you'll see like a goat herder wandered out of a canyon. You're like, what are they eating? There's nothing here but brown dirt. So there's a scene where Jesus heals a blind man. And so he heals him and he's like, ta-da. And the blind guy shrugs and goes, yeah, I really thought there would be more color. And, and that's the example of how you get the comedy from actually reacting to things in real time and then putting it into the book. I don't know how I got down that rat hole, but yes, I do research my book.
One of the things I wanted to talk to you about, because I do love Lamb, and taking on the Bible, that's fucking ballsy. I mean, that is literally ballsy. Like, everyone's going to find something with it, right? Mm-hmm. And what you did was not only tell this absurd story, but your Jesus / Joshua is what I think Jesus / Joshua would be like. Biff is, of course, absurd in his way, but if you actually were to look at the Bible, what this prophet would be saying and doing.
Yeah, I wrote the whole thing based on the four Gospels. And I looked at those people who had rewritten the Gospels before, like Kazantzakis, Last Temptation and stuff like that, and the public reaction to them. And first, the ambition of the project, because you're absolutely right. And I was just at a point, I'd written 5 books. They hadn't done what I needed them to do. I hadn't gotten on the list.
Yep.
I went, I'm going to swing for the fences. I'm going to write the biggest book I can, and we're having no idea if I could pull it off or not. I mean, I really had no idea if it even could be done, let alone if I could do it. It was just trying to get to the next level. And in my career as a writer, and also doing something that was, I couldn't have thought of a bigger challenge at that point. As you know, I have to do what needs to be done to make it work, to get it on the page. So I made a certain assumption, just that I was not going to question who Jesus was.
Yep.
It was like, whatever the gospel says he was, that's what he is. I have no interest in addressing someone else's faith. I knew from the quotes that we had in the gospels that he wasn't a laugh riot. So I needed to create a character who could be that guy and then let Jesus be the straight man. And that was Biff, who was written out of the Gospels because he was a smartass. My editor at the time said, you've got to come up with a reason why in ancient Nazareth they're calling this kid Biff. And so it was like his father would hit him across the back of the head because he was always been a smartass, and that was Biff. Anyway, but the premise was going to be, you're the son of God. What now? Like, he didn't get the instruction book. And then one of the biggest challenges, again, since we're inside baseball here, was getting all of the gospels to agree with each other, because they didn't. So I did massive sketch pads of outlines. I had never done an outline before for a book. It was just like, how am I going to make it work? And I remember in the proposal that I sent, I was like, and then he goes to the rabbi in the temple in Jerusalem when he's 13, which is the last time we see Jesus until he's 30, and he says, I'm the son of God. I don't know what to do. And the priest says, you need to go see these 3 guys that were at your birth that seemed to have some idea of what you were doing. So they take off to the East. And in the proposal, I said, and then they go have adventures in the East. And I got to that part in the book and I was like, I have no idea what to do now. I have no idea. And I was stuck for 6 months. The longest to this day that I've ever been stuck on something. And a friend of mine who had been trying to get me to write a screenplay with him, I called him up and go, hey, do you still want to write that movie about that dream I had that one time that was weird? Anyway, then I had to go back and finish Lamb. But, it just, I'm still, it's 25 years later. I'm stunned that I was able to pull it off.
Right now, I'm in the middle part. He's gotten to the second Magi.
Mm-hmm.
And I could see where the trouble would be to come up with stuff that has no basis, nothing. I have this point, and now, this is the classic, by the way, this is for anybody who's a writer, this is the classic place where writers have the problem, which is we know the beginning, we know the ending. It's this shit in here.
There, yeah.
It's this shit here, which is always the tough part. All right, we're going to take a quick break. And we'll be right back.
We've got a lot more to come, including the greatest first chapters you've never read because they're sitting on our hard drives. Highly polished, incredibly written, no ending, and usually a little thin in the middle. I want to give a big shout out to Bookster, home to a huge community of readers, for partnering with us so we can go deep with these writers. They said yes, so you can eavesdrop on our conversations. Readers, there's a lot of excellent content, recommendations, and Q&As with authors. Writers, Bookster helps you reach new readers. Whether you're a reader or a writer, check out bookster.com. And now, even though you're not supposed to be listening, back to the show.
Welcome back to Don't Worry, No One's Listening. I'm here with Chris Moore. I always say this to people who are struggling with their writing, and I don't know if it's motivating or demotivating, but it just is, which is an amateur is someone who has a novel or screenplay they haven't finished. A professional is someone who has dozens of them.
I had some really extraordinary chapters 1 and 2.
Oh, yep.
And then I would start rewriting them. And
Yep.
I just would have these very highly polished chapters 1 and 2. And I still have those very highly polished chapters 1 and 2. And so when I was sitting down to write my first book, I went, okay, none of those things that I had tried worked. It's due on Monday. I'm going to start Sunday night, see if I can push it through like a term paper. That didn't work. Trying different levels and quantities of alcohol to see if that would get me there.
Does not work.
Just all, I actually had a friend who was also a writer, and we just romanticized all these alcoholic writers, and we got the alcoholism down. The writing part eluded us. So all those things hadn't worked, and I woke up on my 30th birthday, and I had completely destroyed my life. My relationship was in shit. I had a horrible job. Everything was not good. And so it was starting over. And I thought, well, in starting over this book, I need to write every day. And I need to not rewrite, because that's why I have these great chapters 1 and 2, and I don't have chapter 3. First thing I did is for 6 months, I wrote every day in a journal. I would get up, I would go to a coffee shop, I would sit at the counter, and I would write in a journal by hand. And then I started writing the book by hand at the same coffee shop. I had to write every day. Didn't have to be good, didn't have to be long, just had to be every day. And I didn't look back more than one page just to see the transition from the day before. And if I had an idea like, Robert needs to know how to use a chainsaw or something like that, I would put it in the margin of the current page I was on. Go back and give Robert chainsaw skills. And so after a year, I had a full handwritten manuscript. Before we came online, I mentioned about keeping my first draft in the freezer. I mean,
Yeah.
there's no copy to a disc if you're working by hand. So I had a horrible job at a hotel as a night auditor, and I would use their copy machine, and I would copy my handwritten pages, and then I would wrap them in like 10 layers of tinfoil and put them in the freezer. So if the house burnt down, that might survive. But so after a year, I was at this diner and I was talking to the guy who owned it, who became a really good friend of mine. And I said, I need to get a computer to put this book into. And he said, what are you looking for? And I said, an IBM, maybe with a hard drive. I think it was like 10 megabytes was the hard drive. And he goes, well, I got one of those. And I go, I don't have any money, Mike. And he goes, well, why don't I'll just give it to you. And when you sell the book, you can pay me. And sure enough, I did put it in that computer, which was my first rewrite. And I did sell the book and I did pay him.
Which book was that?
That was Practical Demon Keeping. That was my first book. I'm
struggling right now with my latest novel with exactly what you're talking about. I have like the first 35,000 words and they are crisp because I have gone back 16 times and just rewritten them. And I just need to do that same thing, which is just write without editing. Has your process changed over the years? Like, I mean, you obviously don't handwrite. But
no, and I tried it again, but it was too slow. By that time, I had deadlines, and I didn't have the time. Although I'd still do a lot of my notes by hand.
I agree. It really takes a different part of the brain when you're writing. Sometimes when I'm writing things like on notes, I find I'm funnier.
Yeah, you know what I find is I write tighter by hand because I can't back it out.
Yeah,
So I write tighter and probably more succinct because it's like, fuck, this is just taking a whole page. We talked about this. I have a million different computers everywhere. Yep. There's almost no place that I can't just reach like this and there's not a laptop there.
Yeah.
It's not healthy. I'm not, but
no, I have, it's harder for me to get food than it is to me to reach a piece of technology to write.
And I also, I still write the book straight through without rewriting much. Sometimes I'll just have a scene and I'll get to the end of the scene and I'll go, I can't move on with this. You know how you do, you sleep on it. One of the things that I like about being a novelist is what you're going to do every day for a year, in my case. When I was swimming for fitness, that's the most boring thing in the world. It's, black line, black line, black turn, black line. But I would try and solve plot problems. And so that scene that I may have, I walked away from the computer at noon or 1 or something like that. Then when I come back the next morning, I know a lot that I might want to do. So I will rewrite a scene, and tighten it up, things that I had an idea of overnight, but I still don't go back and do major rewrites. And my stuff goes into print. Some of them is almost a first draft. I mean, not spelling and grammar, but actually how the sentences are constructed and everything else. They basically, the way I wrote them is how they end up in print. And that's just fortunate, but also I don't write 3 books a year like some guys do.
Yeah.
I write slowly.
I'm a slow cooker.
And the other thing that always horrified me about writing screenplays was to do all this work and think it all out and then have somebody want you to change it because it was their turn to talk at the meeting. And by the way, pro tip, don't ask someone at a meeting, did you just say that because it was your turn to talk? Because it really
pisses them off.
They really don't care for that.
We're going to take a break in a second, but I just wanted to finish up one thing about this right here. That is so true. I found the key with dealing with studio executives was to bring in a digital recorder or a phone. But usually it's better the digital recorder because the digital recorder has that big red light on it.
Right.
You just put it in the middle of the coffee table, and then everybody becomes 75% smarter. And they don't.
That's a great tip.
Because they know I'm listening. Hey, I just want to know that great idea you said. I want to remember.
Yeah.
And it was something that I learned because I almost got fired from a job when I actually listened to what they said. I did exactly what they said. I came back with it and they're like, we hate everything about this.
Yeah.
And-
And you can't say, I told you.
Right. And so I always tell people, don't do what they say, do what they mean. All right, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. And if you're listening, please stop.
Okay, while we're taking a quick break, I want to say thanks to my producer, Lisa Lindo, who you can't see or hear. She is the ghost in the machine keeping us all on track, or at least trying to, by telling me during these breaks what I didn't do, which is what she's probably doing right now. So when you hear out of context mentions of Lisa, that's who we're talking about. Say hi to everyone, Lisa. Like I said, you can't see her or hear her. The platform doesn't record producers. It has something to do with their magic.
Don't worry, no one's listening.
Welcome back to Don't Worry, No One's Listening. I'm here with Chris Moore, and we are talking shop.
I should have warned you in email. I don't get to talk to anybody about this. So if somebody wants to talk about shop, about what we do, I will go into the weeds.
And we are about to get into the weeds of it.
In the weeds.
We are going deep. So
Deep in the
if
weeds.
you are eavesdropping, you better take a bathroom break first.
You can listen to us on the can. I don't care.
I don't care. That's
Nobody
true.
knows.
Nobody knows.
We can't hear your tinkle noise.
We can't.
It's true.
What we were just talking about between the break, which I wanted to bring in to the show, which was that we don't have an Algonquin roundtable. We don't have people sitting around talking about what we do. And what we do is fucking weird. You know, number one, I think most writers tend to look at the world differently, even if they're not comedy writers. But comedy writers especially. What, as a writer, is the weirdest thing about you as a creative makes you different than those people who are your friends and family around you?
I am completely okay being by myself forever. I mean, I'm not craving it, but I was an only child. And when I was a kid, teens, I would have no problem going to a movie by myself. And I had a friend who worked at a Cineplex. So I would, on a Sunday, a snowy Sunday in Ohio, I would go from theater to theater. You know, I'd see whatever was playing in every single theater, you know. Eat my own weight in jujubes and you know, watch One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and then Alien and then Blade Runner and then, you know, and I still run into people who are like grown ass people and they're like, you went to a movie by yourself or you've gone to a restaurant by yourself? And I'm like, I almost don't know how to go to a restaurant any other way. But so I think that's the main thing that makes me different. The backlash of that is when someone asks me a question, it's going to be an essay answer because I haven't, you know, how are you is an essay question for me because I haven't talked to anybody in weeks. And it's like, well, since you asked, you know, you might want to have a seat and get a beverage. And I have to be reminded of that constantly, especially like doing these podcasts and they're like, well, this is normally a half an hour. We've got 2.5 hours. I know we're almost done.
We're almost done. We're just starting.
So that's my weird thing. What's your weird thing?
My weird thing is that I will say whatever, and I'm not afraid that it's not going to land.
Mm-hmm.
And like I can't watch my wedding video because there's a part where I was doing a little stand up at you know, for my speech, and it was not that it wasn't funny, it wasn't the proper place for it, right? So there are times when people will say that's not funny, and I was like, I'm sorry, people have paid me 7 figures to tell them what's funny. So the other thing I think about is that whenever I see something, I wonder, why don't other people see this? When I'm just seeing something funny, Like sometimes you'll say something and they'll just look at you like you're a strange human being.
Well, since I'm never around anybody,
Nobody looks at you.
And the thing is that my wife will not laugh at something, even if I say it's funny, even if what I say is very funny, because she doesn't want to give me the satisfaction of having cracked her up.
Partners of writers are like that. I think that's a trait.
Yeah.
That they must have.
It's a discount thing. I became friends with the wife of a big rock star, 3 times in the Hall of Fame rock star. And there was nobody in the world who discounted his music more than her. It was like, are you dicking around on that guitar again? You know, when I met my wife, it was a small town, and she knew I was a writer. And I said, do you like to read? And she said somebody's name, and I won't say his name. And I go, I can write circles around that fucker. And she's like, right. And I said, I'll give you a book. She said, no, I'll go buy a book. And she came up, a few days later, she goes, all right, you can. And since I've been a writer, and I've been single on and off a few times since then, my books are like, I guess, the equivalent of my dating profile.
100%.
It's like, if you don't like this, you're definitely not going to like me. I mean, for one thing, if you can get somebody to read a book, you've already weeded out a lot of people. And I've been with my wife now for almost 30 years.
Lisa introduced me actually to my wife. She was like, he wrote a really big book. And she's across the room. She couldn't see what she's like, really big, but she's like, for those people only listening, I have my hands out making a large gesture. But yeah, and she's like, okay. Good job. All right. That helps. That helps a lot. He's a starving writer, but he's got a big book.
Yeah, that's exactly what you want. I should tell my agent that that's the way to get me too by proxy. Well, it turns out that your career is over. It's like, oh, well, this gesture I made in a meeting.
Let's talk about that. You write in the beginning of some of your stuff, like your more recent stuff. You put trigger warnings in.
I do.
But then you also are fairly fearless. Is that something that you felt strongly about, or did your publisher say something?
No, it's something I did. And I think I started something of that nature in 1995. And I did it afterwards in most of them because I didn't want to spoil the book. I didn't want people going into it that way.
Right.
But I wanted to explain afterwards, specifically before they started writing reviews, but also in the case of Lamb, before they put together a murder squad to come get me. Because when I wrote that book, I mean, I literally sent it off to my publisher, and I went to my wife. I said, honey, we're going to be living in an undisclosed location with Salman Rushdie because this is So the afterword of that is like 10 pages of just kidding. But it's always been a dialogue between me and my readers, and so I could anticipate. By the time I was into my 6th book, which was Lamb, I could anticipate what the objections were going to be, and you sort of can fend those off by putting these trigger warnings and stuff like that in it. Going, I'm not being mindless. I know what I'm doing here, and if you don't like it, that's okay. But I'm not doing it, because I didn't think it through.
Yeah, I had sort of a similar experience with The Velvet Sledgehammer. Is this book that I wrote? It's me. It's my past. It's mainstream fiction, more comedy and relationship, always with relationship. I thought my parents would never speak to me again with what I talked about childhood. I thought it's vulgar. It's just straightforward, really honest. And women like it more than men. I didn't know how it was going to land. Weirdest thing you've ever dealt with in terms of fan thing?
Nothing super creepy, which is nice. I've had people kind of test the waters, but gently. Nothing super stalkery or anything like that, which is good.
By the way, this happens to pretty much every writer, male writer or female writer, gets this a little bit.
Sure. So, well, because I tell people, like, when I do a book signing, most of the time there's a bunch of people there, and the bookseller's staff, I come in and I greet them, and everybody's already seated, and they go, "Your people are so nice," and I'm like, and then name another author, and I go, "We had so and so last week. The people were assholes," and I'm like, "Well, I've made them laugh in their bathtub." We're friends. Before I even step in here, we're friends. That's why they're nice, is that they're more kindly disposed to me. It's the same answer when people go, "You should do stand up." I'm like, no, 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 no. I can't do this 4 nights a week. I can do this because the 200 people in this room like me when I walked in, and because I'm an author, anything above just reading in a monotone is above the bar, above expectation. So it looks like a home run, but really it's not. It's a bunt. But so I weird things. I've had funny things. I had there's a character in my book, Lust Lizard of Melancholy Cove, where a whole village is taken off of their antidepressants at the same time. And I knew a shrink who went to my gym, and I talked to him about what happens when people go off antidepressants. And he says, well, their libido spikes. So basically, you had this whole town of really depressed, and whatever sent them to taking SSRIs, that comes back twofold, but then they're horny too. So you had a whole village of distressed and anxious, horny people. And there's one very minor part. She's the receptionist for the psychiatrist that initiates all of this. And she is constantly masturbating the whole time. And so, and finally she has to come to work wearing oven mitts to keep her hands off of herself. So I show up with signing, and there's a photo of this somewhere. There's like 30-ish women, and they've all got oven mitts on each hand at a signing of mine. That's the funniest fun thing that's happened, I think. And people will bring props and stuff because my book, as you said, they're absurd and they're weird shit in them. But nothing really scary or off-putting, because again, they're funny books. They're there to laugh. They have a good time. I've made them laugh. They want to laugh some more. They're kindly disposed to me. And the worst thing they're going to do is like give me cookies.
That's really funny. I started out as a screenwriter, so my audience was always the reader, the producer, the studio executive. It wasn't even the audience sitting in the theater. My first experience, when it went out to the world and then other people were interacting, it was different, because when you're talking to studio executives, they need to urinate on whatever that script is. They have to put a little of their scent on it. They're going to rub up against it, all this. They do not treat the work with the kind of reverence that most actual readers treat it. That was an interesting change for me. I know my stuff's good enough. You don't need to tell me it's good, because otherwise you wouldn't be paying me money for this, right? So you can tell me what is not good. But listening to fans who did not pay 6 or 7 figures or whatever for something they paid $12 for, right? Talking to me with more reverence than these other people, it was different.
Have you ever done a science fiction convention?
Yeah, I have. I've done Comic-Con, and Lisa will remind me, the one in Salt Lake. What's that? FanX. That's right, FanX. And yeah, it was interesting.
It's a different kind of fandom. I don't fit into it very well. I sort of skate on the edge of all the genres, and consequently, my books get put in general fiction, and good, but when I've dipped my toe in the fan world, I'm always a little bit, I'm out of place. Science fiction fans are an interesting demographic, but they're fans, and they're not ashamed of that. Nobody's going to make fun of them for liking Star Wars or Edward Savio's books or whatever they're into. They're fucking into it. And it's a different level of, my fans come up and they're like friends. It's like, we haven't met before, but we know each other. But science fiction fans are different. There's more of a reverence. And it's interesting because I see science fiction writers online, and they present with more self-importance
Yeah.
than I would. It's like it's like, Jim, I don't give a fuck what you had for lunch.
I totally get that.
That's what's kept me from going down the elf road. And I mean, I have written the fantasy I've written is I rewrote A Midsummer Night's Dream.
I love that you did that. By the way, one of the things when we were talking about, like when we talked earlier about Swiss Family Rubinstein, right? That is a piece of property that's based on Swiss Family Robinson, right?
Yeah.
And I love that you go back and pick some of these iconic things. And Midsummer Night's Dream is one of my favorite Shakespearean plays. And the play within a play cracks me up every single time. And I like how you took that and made it your own.
The way I do that, or the way I have done it, is I getting back into the weeds. I had one teacher, a guy named Shelley Lowenkoff, who taught in the professional writing program at USC, but he taught extension courses at UCSB. And he would say, every character you write, you have to know what they want and what they're willing to do to get it. And it has informed everything I've ever written. And when I get stuck, I go to I go to character rather than, plot. And if I'm really stuck, I'm like, you forgot if the character will do this for you. You just haven't thought about them enough. And so when I borrowed Pocket, the Fool from King Lear and written Fool, which is King Lear from the point of view of the Fool, and my premise starting that was, and he wants to shag all the daughters. That's the whole thing. Right. He's this little, totally powerless character, but he became so fun to write because he says all the profane, foul things that Shakespeare never said. And, in that British idiom, which I find hilarious.
Yeah.
And so taking him into Midsummer Night's Dream was not that tough because, Midsummer Night's Dream is one of the few comedies that's actually funny in places, as you, and particularly in play within a play. So I don't know if I want to go as far in the weeds. What became Shakespeare for Squirrels was originally a proposal for Midsummer Night's Dream set in Golden Gate Park in the 1940s. So I'd done all this research on the 1940s in San Francisco, and I wanted all this tough guy, bogey sounding guys dealing with this fool from medieval England, and just playing those two things off each other linguistically would have been a blast. So it was a whole different book. And then my publisher said, "Well, we don't want another Shakespeare book right now," and I'm like, But I'd already done this research, and I was like, "Oh, then I guess I'll just take the Shakespeare part out." And I wrote Noir, which is
that's how Noir came about?
Yep, that's exactly how it came about. It was a back off and use the research that I'd already done about 1947. It's post-war, and it's the whole demographic of the city changed, and I wanted to write about that dynamic and that whole thing. And you had all these women who had value suddenly, and because they were welding ships all over the Bay Area. And then suddenly they're waiting tables at a diner, when they're highly skilled industrial workers. So something cool could come out of that, I figured, but I often add too much to a book, and probably doing Midsummer Night's Dream with all that stuff I just described was probably too much. And I'm pretty happy with how Noir came out, which is just more of a straight comedy, tough guy thing.
I would have never thought that was a stripped down version of something else. It definitely felt like it was such a conscious effort. How much of your stuff now is proposal? You guys will then negotiate what you're writing.
Basically, I get to write what I want, just not when I want. So to answer your question about proposals, right now, I've just sent in 3 proposals for a new contract because I just finished up a contract, so I'm officially unemployed. And I know what I'm going to write. I know they don't want another noir book right now, and my thing to them is going to be, well, here's 2 other books that I will write after I write this one, and you could pretend you like those better, but I'm writing noir next. And because I'm at the end of the contract, they know that. And none of this is all tacit. None of this is out front. I mean, I have this conversation. I'm such a bad negotiator. I'm the only person that comes out of a bazaar paying more for the rug than was actually marked on it. And I have two means of negotiation. That sounds good, or fuck you.
That's it.
Yeah, I'm awful at it. That's why you have agents. That's why you have people like Lisa who are ostensibly good at it. So I don't know if you're this way with your agent, but I am a tough guy with my agent. Well, then just tell them they can go fuck themselves if they don't want it. And she's not going to get on the phone and go, Christopher told you to go fuck yourself.
It's true. I mean, I think that they know how to speak. I think they also know how to, go, it's writer or whatever. But I remember Idiots in the Machine when it got sold to Wendy Feinerman, the Academy Award winning producer of Forrest Gump. She wanted it, and they came back with this number that was like super low. It was like $75,000 against whatever. And we just kept saying no. And the president of Sony was like, give me his phone number, let me get on the phone with him. And I literally said this to Lisa. I don't want to talk to him.
Mm-hmm.
What's he going to tell me? I'm going to make your movie? He can't promise me that.
Mm-hmm.
Tell him to pay the money. And Lisa, to her credit, was like, did not give my cell phone to the president of Sony. And somehow we worked it out. But I mean, when I was sitting in the rooms with the presidents of Disney or Sony or anything like that, I felt like I belonged there. And that's one of the things, like if anybody who's not listening takes away something, it's you got to believe you belong in the room. Mm-hmm. And you kind of said that same thing, which is, hey, I want to do this third noir book.
And also, and this is, something that you probably can speak to too, is, we also live lives. I mean, I just came off of this book that was just a ridiculously ambitious project. And
is this the new one?
Yeah, Anima Rising, which is Gustav Klimt, Egon Schiele, Carl Jung, Sigmund Freud in Vienna, and the Bride of Frankenstein, who's working as a model 100 years after, she crawls out of the ice in the Arctic. And, it just was stupidly difficult. It was hard. And so I want to work with characters I like and that I know in a setting that I know, then where I can just kind of go balls out and have fun and make it, what's the most important thing? Is this funny? But it's where I am in my life. I mean, I'm completely stressed out 23 hours of the day about what's going on politically. I don't want something hard in my work.
We're going to be recording a bunch of these before they get released, so I don't know what's going to be happening at this moment, at this time, when you're listening. But writers have overactive imaginations.
Mm-hmm.
So we can see 10 steps down the road. It's hard to put that away and write, I'm going to write something funny right now.
Yeah, especially comedy. I find writing comedy when there's heinous fuckery most foul going on in the greater country, it's hard. I wrote Fool during the second term of the Bush administration. And I thought the only people that are telling me the truth are comedians. So I thought, I want to write a story about a character who speaks truth to power. And I had this ambient clouded breakfast with my editor in New York. And I said, I want to write a book about a fool, but I don't know if I just want to have it be a generic fool or Lear's fool. And she said, oh, you have to do Lear's fool, which was one sentence for her. And then me having to learn 36 plays.
People don't recognize that. That's so true. Like, I have done research for one of the Battle for Forever books. This character, Alexander, who's like 1,500 years old, but looks like he's 15 or 17. He's going into the Great Pyramid. And so I literally studied every way, including conspiracy theories of how this thing was built, so that 3 lines
Right.
in that book
Mm-hmm.
could be as realistic and maybe informing, readers of something they don't know about with 50 pages of notes. So much stuff. Like you read 36 plays to write one fucking book, which, doesn't have anything to do with most of those plays except for wording and, maybe some characterizations or something like that, right?
Diction. Yeah. And diction.
Diction.
Yeah.
Right. You're just pulling these little things. By the way, if there are people, friends and family even, who are like, I wish I had your job because, just your time is your own.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Well,
it's not.
let's talk about pet peeves. One of my biggest pet peeves is people who tell me I need to get back to work. I've actually had other writers say that to me online, and I'm like, "You're dead to me."
Yeah.
It's because there is not a minute in the day where I am not thinking about the book I'm working on or the next one. And this is a good thing about our life.
Yep.
Like I said before, you know what to think about when you've got 20 down minutes at the dentist office. Guess what? Think about the book. And that's a discipline that you actually develop. But to be, when, especially if it's not going well, if you're just, the pages are just like squeezing blood out of your veins, and then somebody goes, "You need to get back to work and quit messing around here," and I'm like,
fuck you.
yeah, it's like, okay, I need to leave this situation now. Because you've already spoken to it. They think that time that you spend on front of the page is your work time, when in fact the biggest part of your work is done completely out of that context. But I don't care. I mean, it is a fucking cool job. It's a great job.
It is a great job. When I was a starving writer in Los Angeles, I remember going in the ad agency and they had like the Sunkist account and all this, and I wanted to maybe get a job because I was like, I'll do this. I'm creative. I could be funny.
Mm-hmm.
And 2 things happen in that meeting. First of all, I'm walking in there and I'm seeing this guy playing basketball in his office. And I go, what's going on there? And the person who was the partner, she's the mom of a friend. She's like, that guy right there, if he has 3 good ideas in a year, this is the late 80s. He's like, he earns his $250,000 salary. Right. Mm-hmm. And then the other thing was when we sat down, she's like, your proposal was great. Your ideas were great. I got one question for you. If in 3 years, someone says, I'm going to give you X amount of dollars to write a screenplay, are you going to leave me? And I was like, yes. Yes, I will. 100%. And she's like, I love you. I think you're funny. This is great. You can't work for me.
That's when you needed that mentor to go, you always lie. I had somebody who was, I knew the screenwriter, a woman named Max Adams, who wrote Excess Baggage. Somebody liked one of my books, but they didn't think it was for them, but they thought they had another project they thought I'd be great for. And I didn't know how to talk to him. And I was in Cambridge, so we weren't having a meeting. We're going to do a conference call. And I'd write to Max and I'd go, well, what do I do? And she goes, well, you got to tell him you're very excited about the idea. And I go, I don't know what the idea is. She goes, doesn't matter. Tell him you're very excited about it.
Very excited.
And so the next time I write her, I go, okay, I had it. And I had the second call and I go, I told him I'm very excited. She goes, no, you're not excited anymore. You're intrigued now. And so I got to the point where now I have to do a outline or a treatment and, to get the job. I go, I don't know how to make a treatment or an outline funny. And to this day, I run into that. And it's like,
I agree.
People get to the end of it and they go, is it funny? And it's like, have you ever read a funny outline? And I go, so how do they know it's funny? And she goes, oh, you tell them. You go, oh, this here is funny. And she goes, and they'll laugh. When you tell them this is funny, they'll laugh at that point. And I was like, okay. And I did it. And it was like, okay. But that's when you need, what your situation you were in, you need the mentor to go, oh no, Edward, lie.
100%
you always lie. Yeah.
Always lie.
You always have to lie.
All right, we're going to take a quick break and then we're going to just wrap it up. But
Okay.
I am talking with Chris Moore, and this is Don't Worry, No One's Listening, because by now,
Nobody's listening.
nobody's listening.
Even Lisa's gone.
We'll be right back.
If you are listening, despite all our warnings not to, follow the show, rate it, drop me comments and recommendations. I read them very slowly. I can be reached pretty much on all social media at Edward Savio, except, strangely, Facebook, where I'm at Edward Savio Writer. Lisa should be just about wrapping up giving her notes, so let's get back to more.
Hey, everybody, we're back. Chris, why I wanted to do this is to just get this conversation going with people who do what I do or could understand what I do. Because a lot of times the people we live with and we love, they don't get it. And they don't get it. They love us in spite of the things that we do. And by the way, I apologize to anyone I've dated in the past where I tried out material. You didn't deserve that. You need to be seen. You need to be seen. But I want to talk a little bit about process. We were talking about how many monitors you have. I've got like a 65-inch monitor, a 50-inch monitor, and at least one 27-inch monitor. When I'm not using the smallest possible laptop I could to write, because I have those, as we talked about. Like if you reach over right now, like I could grab 2 or 3 and just pick them up like they're popcorn. To other people who are listening, you don't have to have all of this stuff that we talk about to write.
No. And I've actually had a person who I knew socially, but was a studio executive who one time we were talking about laptops and iPads and all that stuff. And she said, why don't you just need one? Or she said, you only need one, right? And I said,
you don't know.
Need has nothing to do with it. Nothing to do with it. No, I need a pencil. That's all I need.
What's your process like?
I wrote my first 3 books in a diner. When I'm working on a book, I will get up in the morning, make coffee, come down, sit down in front of the computer I'm on right now is a laptop, but it's a big balls laptop. It's got 3 monitors on it, and I write on one, and I usually keep notes on the other. I have a place up on the Russian River that I go to write, and then I'm just working on a MacBook. I use sketch pads a lot, 2 foot by 3 foot things, and a lot of circles and arrows. And I almost always have a notebook with me, but more and more I will put notes in a phone, in my watch, I have an iPad by my bed. When I'm working on a book, I try to stay pretty disciplined. I try to work every day. I don't always work. I get days off when you get stuck or, something happens. People want you to do stuff, like normal people.
I find cleaning, I only clean when I'm blocked.
Sometimes one can facilitate the other. It's like,
that's correct. It's
time to clean my office, which, I would pan this camera and show you that was a failure. That cleaning this office was my office. Every office I've ever had looks like somebody just loaded a cannon with office supplies and fired it through the door. And people all the time, they'd look in and they'd just get this like, why? And I'm like, well, when you've written 10 bestsellers, you can answer why. Why is because it works. I'm not going to mess with it now. If it didn't work, I would change it. Believe me,
I tend to write in Ulysses. One of the reasons is because it's live on my computer. It's live on my iPad. It's live on my phone. And so even if I'm just sitting there, and then we talked earlier, like in a doctor's office or you're doing something, whatever, I write. Not even just notes, I might write in the actual thing that I'm working on. I also use timeline software, especially when I'm doing sci-fi. When you were trying to do Lamb, did you have to bring your research together in a different way for that book than your other ones before or after?
I was working from the 4 Gospels. As I said, the 4 Gospels don't agree.
No, they don't.
So I had to make a sort of a Bible. I had to make a master timeline. Of like, I'm going to take this event, and I had to take each of the Gospels and the things that they said. The Gospels don't even agree on the number of apostles, by the way.
That's correct.
And people, it's one of the things I have a really hard time having any kind of dialogue with people who are pious about their faith, because it's like, dude, don't tell me what this says. I spent years of my life studying these 4 books.
Did you use technology for that, or what did you do?
I used sketch pads for it. Most of my books I wrote in a 3-act structure. Now, in a novel, there's no place where it says act 1, act 2, act 3 any more than there is in a screenplay, but we know that. But as I was writing Land and I got into these areas, it was lost. It's like, oh, this is going to be a 5-act play. And that's a whole different set of timing. You can't use a screenwriting guide for that. So I do use a timeline, and I still use my sketch pads. My always open program is Evernote.
I'm like what Salieri said to Amadeus. I have too many notes. I have too many notes. And coming from a screenwriting background, one of the things that I wanted to do my first novel was not to write a screenplay, was to write the anti-screenplay. So I went off and didn't do as much structure. I ended up finally having to bring it back together by the end and went, use my screenwriting skills here. Novels are much more open, but I found I had to become a reader and let the prose come into my writing, because coming from a screenwriting background, we're supposed to be terse with words, but I always wrote jokes in the stage directions, which would give the tone, even though it would never make it to the screen.
Right.
How far are you along before anybody sees it?
I don't have readers anymore. My wife reads it, and then it's like my agent and my editor. I mean, I don't have any friends, so there's nobody to read it.
You were saying that pretty much the draft you turn in, for the most part, is there. I feel that there are very large writers, and not size, but in terms of, there's some people that don't get edited and their stuff gets bloated. I feel like your stuff's so tight.
I mean, a lot of that, Edward, is I'm largely self-taught. And so there's these little aphorisms that I picked up from people I heard speak before I had a career, when I was just an aspiring writer. Heard Elmore Leonard speak early on, and he said, I found when I was reading, I was skipping parts of the book, so when I wrote mine, I left those parts out. Live by it to this day.
That's a great one.
The teacher I mentioned earlier, Shelley Lonecoff, was an acquisitions editor at a publisher. And he said, when I worked as an editor, if we read 1 page and they held on to us, we would read 2. If we read 2, we would read 10. If we read 10, we would read 50. If we read 50, we would read 100. And if they got us through 100, we would finish the book. So when I sat down to write my first book, I wrote, I cannot give anybody a chance to put this fucker down for the first 100 pages. And then you set a pace for yourself, and that's how the book's got to go. And I don't think I've strayed far from that. I get more indulgence now because people know me going into the book. They're like, well, Chris seems a little bit high right now, but he'll bring us home. But but that was being aware of that principle of, you cannot give a person a reason to put it down. If there's any reason my stuff remains, tight, it's that.
That's really interesting, because I think if my criticism of myself is that because I'm a screenwriter, because I was like, gotta have that stuff so fast, part of my journey as an author has been to explore. I try to always bring it back around, but I feel like sometimes I do indulge.
One thing, a novel, you can stick around. And when I'm talking about this, I'm talking about nobody knew who I was. I didn't have anything preceding me. So everything had to be on the page. Everything, pace, character, humor, everything had to be there. Now I get some indulgence. I can goof around a little bit. I can, and you can go off on flights of fancy if you want. But you and I live in a different world than somebody who's starting out. And so the things that you can learn about discipline and so forth. And so there's a difference. I mean, if we were doing this and we were talking to people who were trying to break in first, God help you, I wouldn't want to do it now.
So we're coming to the close 18 hours later here. And I've really enjoyed
Good luck editing this, and feel free, cut as much as you want.
Right now I'm going to do something I call laugh, cry, scream. A book or a movie or a scene that just made you laugh, and one that made you cry and one that made you scream, whether it was in anger or fear or frustration. What do you got for a laugh?
You warned me that you were going to ask me this, and all the stuff I came up with, and I love funny stuff, but everything was old. But the thing that came to mind, I think it's in Groundhog Day when Bill Murray is in the truck with the groundhog driving, and he's going, "Don't drive angry, don't drive angry." I was in tears, just absolutely in tears.
My one of that is Night Shift.
Mm-hmm.
When Henry Winkler is in the club about to be beat up, and Michael Keaton, he's in his Tarzan-like uniform, and he goes, "I'll save you," and we see him leap, and we cut to the angle of Winkler talking, and body just falls in behind, and just we see he misses him. He misses the guy he's supposed to be saving him from. He just hits the ground, and I remember being in the theater rolling on the ground.
That's a great movie. And I still remember, and I haven't seen it since I saw it in the theater, Michael Keaton talking about
the tuna fish
in the same jar with mayonnaise. No, wait, 4-speed tuna mayonnaise. It was so funny. And it's really weird because I love rhetorical comedy a lot, but the things that I've lost it and have been physical comedy, and usually a surprise. And the scary one is the jump scare in Jaws when Richard Dreyfuss is diving on the sunken boat. And there's a hole in the bow, and a face appears in the hole. And I was in the theater, and it was like 300 people wet themselves. It was so scary.
What's your cry?
And the cry, and this is something that's a repetitive thing now because I'm deep within menopause. I weep at dog food commercials. I'm so emotionally fragile now that I can't. If somebody sings "Over the Rainbow," I have to bleep the room. It doesn't matter who either. It can be awful. Anyway, but what I have found over the years is I'm more responsive. I weep more rather than sad scenes, but it like glorious sort of relief scenes. And the scene in The Abyss where Ed Harris is, I'm choking up, reviving Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio. Is that her name?
Yep,
that long fucking name? And he's just beating on her chest and going, "Live, you bitch." And then she does. It's like, oh, I can't do it. I just like, and I think I was on a date. You have to completely pretend like you're not weeping. I mean, I still do it. My wife's sitting 2 feet from me, and I'm like, allergies. And those kind of scenes repeatedly choke me up. Is where some escape or life affirming thing happens, and then I'm a puddle. I'm useless.
I got to tell you, this is like I told you earlier. Going to talk to filmmakers as well, but I'm really talking to authors, male and female, to kind of get this different perspective. And I'm focusing really on people that I read. One, because I can sound knowledgeable about their work, but I also want cool people. And again, I said it before, consistently clever and funny is tough.
But thank you for having me. I appreciate it. And as I warned you, you get me talking about craft, I'm never going to shut up.
I mean, I think we'll get something out of this. We might be able to cobble together something.
You're going to definitely challenge your editing skills. Like, just go through it and mark, well, okay, this is kind of funny. And then you're like, we got it down to 3.5 minutes, Chris. It's a tight 3.5 minutes of funny stuff. And the rest of it, if they can, it's bonus content.
So I am the worst at getting off the phone. And my kids make fun of me all the time because I'll start a goodbye and then I'll start a new conversation with them. So I'm beginning to say the goodbye part, but one last thing. Mm-hmm. Let's say that we're still here an hour from now. What's the story you would end up telling me?
I think I mentioned to you earlier that I leave the best part of myself in my books. So, I would just hand it to you. I think to wrap up the subject of this, when I wrote my first book, and it was funny, and I was really sort of acerbic and snotty, and the first few friends, my friends who worked in the restaurant with me, who read it, they were like, "Chris, this is harsh." And I had read John Steinbeck late because they screw you up by giving you Mice and Men, and you go, "Well, that's the most depressing thing I've ever read." But I read Sweet Thursday and Cannery Row and Tortilla Flat, and he wrote with such forgiveness and amusement about flawed people, and sort of conveyed that what unites us all as human beings is we're all flawed. And I tried to bring that to my work, and I think it's the reason that I had any success at all, was just, being a clever, acerbic asshole takes you so far, but trying to understand other people, that took me a lot farther. So that's what I would say to you that I didn't say up till now.
That's pretty cool. That's a good one. I like that. Because I think in order to be funny, you have to be a little bit of an asshole. A little bit. But it is that other part that gets you the love of the people who read you. Like you said earlier, people are taking you into the bathroom. They are taking you into bed with them. They are taking you into their car if they're listening. And so you're in all these intimate places. You have to be part of the solution rather than the problem. So that's a cool way of doing it. Chris, it's been really great talking with you.
It's been great, Edward. Thanks for having me. Thanks, Lisa. You guys don't know, you who are not listening don't know that Lisa's been here the whole time.
No,
lurking,
not at all.
Lurking. All right. Take care, bud.
Take care.
Bye.
Don't worry, no one's listening.
DWNOL is produced by Lisa Lindo for Rocket Surgeon Productions and presented by Bookster. Music by Mood Mode. DWNOL themes by Trina Davis and Annie Musical Team. More later. Oh, hey, I forgot. You should check out Christopher Moore's latest book, Animal Rising. Chris paints himself into a box and then he blows the hinges off it. I just finished it. It's smart, funny, and come on, the Bride of Frankenstein working as a model for Gustav Klimt with Sigmund Freud as her shrink? And that's not the funny part. If you like Chris Moore, you should check out Animal Rising. Even if you don't like Chris, you should still check it out.